Okay, thank you so much SGBuses for sending me these slides. They were really nice. So this is another one of my kind of live reaction videos because I only saw this for like a few minutes and now I will be attempting to explain both OTA and EWT to you guys. I mean, I don't think I need to go over the basics of like what is estimated waiting time and what is on-time adherence, but essentially they are pretty much the same thing, except the fact that this one is way more strict and then this one is a little bit more forgiving. And this thing is usually like plus 4 to 5 minutes. Like they allow you to deviate from the scheduled runtime from 4 to 5 minutes. Whereas OTA, you kind of have to like follow time on the dot whenever possible. But again, due to like traffic conditions on the road, depending on the bus service, it's usually 1 to 2 minutes. Like 506 is 2 minutes. I don't know if it's still 2 minutes, but 136 is like 1 minute. Different operators, they have like different standards for like the deviation of OTA. EWT is like a little bit more fixed. So the first example with OTA is that let's say you have a notorious traffic jam area, let's say it's Orchard Road, and then you might be wondering, what does TP1, TP2 mean? Okay, so these mean like time point 1, time point 2. In the Singapore context, they usually refer to it as a point stop, whereby whether you're an EWT or an OTA bus service, these are the stops that have higher importance. Like, as much as possible, you have to try to depart these stops on time so that you, in the name of like maintaining a consistent hitway according to like bus service reliability framework, BSRF. T1 and T2 are just terminal 1 and terminal 2, assuming that it's a bidirectional service. But even in the case of a loop service where you don't have a T2, you just make it wrap around. It's the same concept. It's just easier to like visualize it when it's like bidirectional. Again, I know there's this whole debate about like, okay, if you have a loop service that has a fast turnaround, which effectively is T2 in a way, then sometimes this kind of like fast turnaround, depending on like geographical context, might be better than a conventional trunk bus service. Yeah, I get that, but on the other hand, there is also this argument that like the long loop bus services, like how 99 was in the past before it got extended to Jukun, because of the lack of a T2, this means that like when you have like multiple notorious traffic jam areas, not just one of them, but like a lot of them, that's the reason why 99's headways could get messed up a lot. And that's where they thought of like converting 99 to a bidirectional, whilst still ensuring that Jurong West Street 92, that lone bus stop, is still being served by 241. Again, this is just explaining why there's a T1 and a T2. Sometimes even if your bus service has a fast turnaround, the conditions on the road, like let's say you have multiple notorious traffic jam areas in the case of like 99 in the past, doesn't matter how big or small your loop is. The fact is that like the bus service is gonna get delayed anyway because of all of these notorious traffic jam areas, like multiple of them. So again, in short, traffic jam or no traffic jam, it's not really dependent on whether your loop or even if your service is bidirectional, depending on how good the turnaround loop or the terminal is, it's not referring to that. It just solely depends on how congestion prone the route is. You can go on and on arguing about this and coming up solutions as to fixing these bus services, but I'm just trying to explain to you why there's a T1 and a T2 and why this doesn't necessarily apply. Like the T1 and T2 doesn't necessarily apply to all services, but the concept of this will apply to all services. So when you reach this notorious jam prone area, obviously your bus is going to get stuck, right? And then the buses would gradually make up time after the notorious traffic jam area. So even when you actually impose OTA to the dot, sometimes your buses, like especially in Orchard Road, like in the case of like 175, or even I could say 65 on Sundays, it kind of runs on like fake OTA. It's like it's not officially OTA in the sense that they put the timetable on the bus stop poles. 65 during Sundays pretty much like I think 10, 29, and 65. On Sundays they run on like fake OTA, which means they are attempting to control the run times during these days. How much they succeed or not it really depends, okay, like based on the actual road conditions and stuff. But one way that the operator actually, like basically bus operations and control center, BOCC, the way they actually try to solve the OTA problems. So this is one example. Again, nothing has changed. It's still the same bus service, like the route, but what has changed is that there is a hurry up zone 1 and a hurry up zone 2. So again, operator corrective action. This is when the operator actually does something about it, and they inform every bus captain, hey, please drive faster, please drive slower, stuff like that, when they actually inform the driver's life. So this is one strategy. So the thing is, if the bus route is already congestion prone in the first place, why are you even implementing OTA on it? So yes, there is a whole like debate on this, on whether OTA is like truly effective or not. But usually when the bus service goes OTA, it's because the frequency itself isn't good enough. It's throughout the day it's like higher than 15 minutes, or it's like usually 20, 22 minutes or something. And because of this, the LT, or like the public transport operators, they attempt, and the keyword here is attempt, to control the frequency so that some form of like service standard is still being adhered to, especially when there is no traffic congestion. Like it's not like the traffic congestion is gonna be there 24/7 or anything. It's just sometimes peak is more crowded, off peak it's less crowded, blah 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 blah. But yes, it's important to remember the fact that this notorious traffic jam area, it's not there 24/7. Now, as usual, I'm not gonna spoon feed my viewers. You can see the trapeze like blue, orange, green, blah blah blah. I will leave it up to you to figure out what like these actually mean in practice. Like basically SGBuses diagram is just to help with your visualization. Because again, the whole concept of OTA, like the whole notion of it, is an attempt to regulate the frequencies. Whether said attempt is successful or not, it depends, but at least there's an attempt. Let's say your bus runs through a low density area. Said low density area still needs some form of bus connectivity, either to your nearest MRT station or like to the outside world, in the case of like 6th Avenue having 77, 970, and 156. But because there are not many people within 6th Avenue in the first place, and you would realize that 77, 156, and 970, yes, 156 kind of like passes by some HDBs at like Buangkok Green, and 970 likewise for like in Dawson, or like Queenstown area, or like Commonwealth Avenue, Holland Village, as well as like Bukit Panjang. Yes, you could see that like, and even Bukit Batok East for like 77. You could see that like these bus services, they have the route wise, they pass through some HDB estates, but they pass through way more private estates as opposed to like HDB estates. And when you have a private estate, it's all single houses, right? Like ikodate. So basically this means that like in the private estates, and since most of your routes serve private estates, and in the case of 77 it actually goes into Orchard Road, it's to bring people from the private estates like Tota, 6th Avenue to Orchard Road, because these people have like really poor access to the outside world, right? So let's say you can take 77 and then at Orchard Road you can either shop or dine, or you change like to service 36 to get to different areas, blah 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 blah. So yeah, that's the thing. But another thing is that like the main point about why these services are OT in the first place is because private estate residents, they are still commuters. You still have to serve them and bring them to the outside world. The only difference is that they have lower density as opposed to like traditional, not really traditional, but like HDB estates. Lower density, it means that you do not have to run your bus as frequent. There is a reason why 970 runs 20-minute frequencies. It's because you run it like 10 minutes, it's just gonna bleed money. But 20 is actually the sweet spot for 970. The bus service has to exist, but you just regulate it so that it operates around 20 minutes as opposed to like 10 to 15. I'm pretty sure 970 at some point in the day it's like 15 minutes, but off peak it's usually 20 minutes. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but the whole reason why it's 20 minutes is because lower density. And when you have these kinds of frequencies above 15 minutes or 20 minutes, you have to OTA. There is just no two ways about it. But when your OTA bus service has a congestion prone area, okay, 77 is not OTA, but let's just say 156. I mean, even 156 is not a good example because it's not a good example because it's only OTA on the weekends. It's not OTA during weekdays per se. The more accurate example is to probably pick a service that is OTA every day, like on weekdays as well. Yeah, 970. You could say it's Chinatown or something, but since the example is going to be revolved around Orchard Road anyway, I'm just going to use this as 175. So this is Orchard. And let's say this T1 is something like Bukit Merah, like Jalan Bukit Merah. Block 120 or something. Or 119. I forgot the I'm sorry, I forgot the bus stop name. And then TB2 would be something like, let's say, I know this is not really a good example, but let's say Bugis. And then this is like Gilang Lorong 1. This is just to help you visualize. Like this is during even weekends is probably the same thing because you know people go for shopping during the weekend, so you could argue that like there might be more traffic on weekends at Orchard Road. So yeah. But essentially, in Orchard, you are gonna be late anyway. So if you see this as like some, you know, the diagrams that they often show you in science class or something, it's kind of like a cylinder or I don't know, like a cylinder or something. And then you have a wide area, you have a narrow area. And then when you have like many particles, I don't even know how to like describe it to you. Let's say that like the particles are the vehicles along the road, be it private or public. They would get bottlenecked and everybody is like crowding, squeezing in order to get through this tiny sector. Or if there's like roadworks, lane closures, diversion, blah, not diversion, but like you get the idea. So the strategy is that the BOCC would basically tell the BCs or something that like, hey, it's gonna be congestion prone anyway. So there is nothing we could do about this area in general. Like no amount of bus priority is gonna fix this area. Let's be realistic about it. You can be deluded about it, but I'm just saying realistically, there is no way to like actually solve this. So this is the limitation. But what you can do is that you as the operator, you actually implement all these hurry up zones. It means that like for this sector, right, you do not follow OTA, and for this sector you do not follow OTA. You only resume the OTA only at your next point stop per se, like time point 2. When I mean ignore OTA, this means that like for certain routes you actually have some form of like flexibility to ignore the scheduled time, meaning like you selectively enforce on-time adherence for any particular bus service along different sectors of the route. So it's not like you have to impose OTA from the start of the route to the end of the route. That's only a thing for like first and last bus, to be honest. But outside of that, you could choose to selectively enforce OTA. Some sectors you follow, some sectors you ignore, and based on this diagram that SGBuses has drawn for me, it says that you follow time here and you could ignore time here. So what they would do is that you're gonna get bottlenecked anyway. So I would rather you just speed all the way so that to make up time. So it's like before quote unquote disaster strikes, you prepare yourself in advance by driving faster. And then when you are through the congestion prone zone, you would speed up to catch time again. How much buffer you add along this part of the route, it depends. It depends on how you want to do it. But let's say you actually have to put a point stop here. I would say this could be applicable to like expressway bus services as well, assuming that you actually have a point stop over here that you have to follow time. So the hurry up zones is basically it's a measure to attempt, it's like a reaction to it, to attempt to at least ensure that you don't get screwed too badly. Like, you're gonna get screwed, but how do you cushion the impact, basically? I mean, this is literally the only case how you do it, because you cannot just get a bus to divert mid-route and then inform passengers, hey, we'll be skipping this. I mean, sometimes for 856 they do it, and then they ask the checkpoint people to alight at the bus stop opposite An-Nur Mosque. Yeah, that's one thing, but typically Singapore isn't like that flexible to the point whereby they could just make a bus skip the congestion prone zone. Singapore hasn't reached the stage whereby they actually do this and the passengers will be okay with it, because you know Singaporean commuters, it's like they are not like the brightest when it comes to like getting from point A to point B, because they don't know how to read maps for some reason. So okay, that's another different story, but basically you're gonna get screwed, but what would you do to like mitigate it? So this is for OTA. There are some exceptions for OTA. Okay, like I know 506, like they changed like the TP, the point stops. Last time it used to be trellis, now it's like burgundy or something. And then after a certain point, you can already ignore OTA. I forgot where the point is, but yeah, some express services do have the ignore OTA parts of the route, depending on like how the route is even structured in the first place. But again, there are exceptions. Like for CDS, for example, during AM peak, you have to, this is very important, you have to be on time within the neighborhood. This is really important. But after the express sector, you could just run and you could just fly. You could ignore the timetable. It's the same thing. PM peak, right? You pull time, you OTA within the city sector, and then once you depart the last stop on time, or even later, depending on traffic conditions, you could just fly. So the reason why I showed you this example is because there are bus services that selectively enforce OTA, and this is a way to selectively enforce OTA. You don't have to change the timetable, but you could just tell your drivers, I mean through BOCC, that like, hey, there's a congestion, y'all can ignore time. Just try your best, that kind of thing. So, I mean, but still, this is a form of like selective enforcement. Now you have EWT, which is, it's basically the same concept as OTA. It's just that you don't really have to like follow time. You could be plus minus 4 or 5 minutes. They are more lenient when it comes to like the whole deviation from schedule per se. So again, you would see that there is like average measured hit wait 18 minutes, 19 minutes. But then when you hit the congestion prone zone, you would see that the frequencies actually become to get irregular. And the more traffic congestion prone areas that you have, you might see it being way more inconsistent per se. And then there's also this thing about like measured estimated waiting time at TP1, TP2, TP1, TP2, blah 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 blah, and stuff like that. I'll let you guys figure out yourself as to what these actually mean. But yeah, because again, I do not believe in spoon feeding. I would just tell you that like drivers make up 3 minutes before this. Drivers make up another 8 minutes before this. Oops, sorry, blah blah blah. I'll let you guys, based on this diagram, actually I should zoom out a little bit. In the comment section, tell me what it means, like what it's trying to show. But basically, the whole concept of this is that when the bus drivers become late, they would be like, oh, I need to catch up, right? So they would naturally speed up. This is basically like how bus services were operated in the past without enforcement. There was no like bus service reliability framework back then. Some bus drivers tend to be faster, some bus drivers tend to be slower. And yes, basically the whole reason why they even came up with like BSRF in the first place is to tackle this thing. But if I were to exaggerate it, let's say this is actually something like 31 minutes, this is 15, this is probably 8 minutes, and this is like 9 minutes. This level of like inconsistency is the reason why this whole BSRF framework is even a thing. Not that I agree with it, but this is basically what they're trying to solve. So again, what can PTOs do to address the situation? They cannot do nothing, right? Because it's part of your job. So essentially, what they aim to do is that measure estimated waiting time at TP1 0.00000, right? When you compare to this, it's actually 3334. And then why did SGBuses actually put this in red? Okay, it's also to catch your attention, but like I want you to notice, like again, tell me in the comment section, why is this 3334 and why is this 0000? Obviously he put it in red, something must be wrong, right? But yeah, as you can see, this. So this is saying that hit way is consistent if everyone is late. So drivers are not permitted to speed up to maintain consistency. So because like without this whole, like with no action taken, like I mean, if BOCC doesn't take action, the drivers driving at different speeds, they would mess up the frequencies, right? But if you actually stepped in to tell them, hey, don't be stressed, don't worry, I know that there is a congestion. I mean, this also operates under the assumption that like BOCC themselves actually touch grass, right? Like basically they actually are able to, like from Google Maps or something, like they could actually see the live traffic conditions and advise accordingly. But yeah, this is what it means. So basically, you tell them, oh, it's all right, just drive normally, and yes, you all hit the congestion prone area, but you maintain your frequency. So if one bus is late, it's fine. Everybody's late. And if everybody just maintains their normal speed, again, I know in real life it's hard to do this depending on the notorious traffic jam areas, but ideally, the whole concept of this is that if you maintain your speed, you maintain your gap after the notorious traffic jam area, provided your buses don't actually get stuck there for significant periods of time. Again, traffic jams aren't predictable, so sometimes they're predictable, sometimes they're not. But yeah, the main concept of this is that you tell everybody just drive as per normal and maintain their headway. The drivers only make up time after their last TP2. So it's like east west. I mean for EWT, right? I almost said east west. Okay, for EWT, right? This is the last point stop whereby you have to quote unquote follow time, right? Even though it's EWT, there are certain points along the route whereby they would actually enforce you, hey, you gotta depart this stop on time. You cannot be early. If you're early, then we'll penalize you for that. But yeah. So what ends up happening is that the drivers only make up time after their last point stop. The issue with this is that, as what SGBuses has labeled here, the actual layover time reduced. Again, I believe SGBuses actually made these slides himself. Even if he didn't make it himself, it's fine. This is really useful anyway. So again, thank you. Actual layover time meaning at Terminal 2, or even if you don't have a T2, it's a loop bus service, the effect is still going to be the same. Your layover time eventually at your original terminal, it's going to be reduced as well if it's a loop service. Again, the whole, okay, I don't want loop services, I want it to be bidirectional, blah blah blah. It's to try to, even if all buses depart late, at least there is this point whereby y'all could take a break, and then the whole headway thingy will just reset itself, right? Again, it's an attempt. Not saying it's the best solution for every single case, but it's an attempt. That's the keyword, it's an attempt. Bus services they do have like some degree of like unpredictability in them. So again, nothing is perfect, but at the very least, there's like some form of solution. But again, this would result in like the drivers getting less breaks. Like they have like a 15-minute break, it'll be cut down to like 5 to 10 minutes or something, because every bus arrives late. So this is the downside, as you can see. There is also another corrective action, which is basically you do the same thing as what you did previously. Let me see if I can. Okay. Again, this is just so that you guys could actually visualize better. So okay, let's do the same thing again. You do the cylinder thingy. You're still gonna get screwed over here. Okay, average measured headway 16 minutes. Okay, this is just an example. I'm sorry for covering up the words, but yeah. Imagine the whole cylinder thingy again. You do the same thing. Speed up to make up for future time lost due to traffic jam. So you intentionally speed up. And then again, I'll leave it up to you guys to try to figure out what this means. Allocate 1 minute estimated waiting time allowance for each time point sector. I'll leave it up to you. Oops, sorry. This was 0. Like, okay, this was like 3, 3, 3, 4. This is inconsistent. This was 0. This was 1. So I want you guys to tell me why this is 1. You can explain it in prose, you could explain it in point form. Even if you don't have like all the keywords, but you are thinking along the correct lines, it's fine as well. The main intention is to make people learn something from my video. So again, it's the same thing. Drivers only make up time after the last point stop. Everything is the same. The only thing you change is that you tell them to speed up here, and then you allocate 1 minute to kind of like cushion the impacts of it. So this is one.